with the old mythology, like prior Christianity? Is there many people interested in that?
Yes, they are.
No, yes?
Yeah.
But they are really passionate about it.
Yeah.
The people who are passionate
They're
about
graphic. They're considered to be very graphic.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
going to the Olympus mountain and having pagan stuff.
Yeah.
But they can believe in all this. They investigate more than the religious people,
Of course.
so they can understand easier all this dimensional universe.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, and I feel
They
they
are more
receive
open-minded.
a lot of channeled information from
Exactly.
forebears that have been passed down as well. Yeah, yeah. In terms of, can I answer the second part of the question that you probably didn't realise would be a part of this answer, but I'll answer it anyway. The reality is that on the planet, there was a time when there were spirits who came from the spirit world in a fairly poor condition, who materialised on the planet. And they actually had sex with women on Earth. They were mostly males, and they had sex with women on Earth, and they had progeny. And the progeny were children. They had children, and the children were like they were
Semi-gods.
well. That's what they were basically treated as. They were treated as sort of gods. They were around 10 to 12 feet tall.
Giants would call it in
So
our mythology.
they were giants.
Yeah.
And the Egyptians talk about these people as well, don't
They refer. Many of the old cultures refer to them as the sun gods.
Sun gods, yeah.
Yeah, who many people nowadays believe came from outer space or something.
Yeah, that's the
like that.
propaganda.
But actually, they were the children of materialized spirits. The problem is the children were, what's the word I'm looking for? Where you can't have children.
Yes, sterile.
Sterile, yeah. And so, of course, but also this event actually occurred shortly before some major earth changes on the Earth. And so some of the records are actually sunken in the sea, but there are records in all of the larger pyramids. In fact, the Great Pyramid and stuff like that also refers to, not the Great Pyramid itself, but there are temples in Egypt that are buried under huge amounts of silt that have now been, that were, over the last 100 years or so uncovered. And they have records of all of this kind of mythology, if you like. That's what it's classified as do the Aztecs and other older civilizations, the Mayans and so forth, right? And these, and in fact, the Bible itself contains a record of this. It refers to a group of people the Bible refers to as the Nephilim, just before the time of the flood of Noah's day. And it's all referring to the same thing. And
These children.
these children, yeah. And these children were so violent as well that it created the degradation of the condition on the planet to such a point that the spirits themselves couldn't maintain their physical form anymore, and they dematerialized. So the parents of the children dematerialized just before the earth change events occurred.
Like Titans, something like that.
So that, well, they returned back to the spirit world, so they're now still in the spirit world.
How could the poor condition, spirits in poor condition, be materialized and
By the condition of the earth raising to a point, to around the second sphere actually. If the condition of the earth was in the second sphere, at the moment you would have spirits who are in that sphere able to materialize bodies. Does that make sense? Yeah.
No, but I've heard that.
I don't get
Doesn't make sense.
Can it happen again?
Could it happen again?
If we raise eventually the condition on Earth, and before we merge with our partners, we can visit Earth again with physical bodies.
You mean if you're in the spirit world?
I'm in the spirit world. I stayed in the sixth sphere, for example, let's say. I'm not one with God yet.
At the moment, pretty much anybody above a fourth sphere condition can materialise. But they can only materialise under certain conditions. And the conditions that have been imposed by God, basically, through the laws that are involved, are that you can't do it for personal reasons. So in other words, you can materialize, but for reasons that are beyond, that are loving, that are love-based reasons, from pure perspective.
And this is the thing that we were talking about the conditions being different then, wasn't it?
The conditions way back in this time when these other spirits materialized, where there was an initial materialization of spirits who were in the condition where they were being loving, but because they could do it, their doing of it created the ability in the others who weren't in as loving condition to do it, be able to do it at the same time. So basically, it's a bit like if I go and create a nuclear fusion bomb, and I was doing it for some loving purpose. But let's say it was for let's say I was doing nuclear fusion fission for the purpose of producing power, for example. And then because I now have that technology, mankind, if they're in a poor condition, can then use it negatively, can't they? So this is the problem with every new discovery we make. The people in the poorest condition at the moment are the people who determine the use of the discovery to a large degree. So, for example, the first aeroplane flew around about 100 years or so ago, right? A powered aeroplane, in terms of our modern history. Within a few years, what were they using it for?
Bombing.
For dropping bombs in the First World War. Yeah. Now, it wasn't until the late 30s, or usually about that time, where man started to use it for more loving means, which was for transportation of people between continents. And then, obviously by now we're using more aeroplanes for loving means, in the sense of it's more for communication and transportation and all this kind of thing, what you would classify as more loving means than what we use it for in terms of unloving means. There's a lot more planes now built for domestic purposes, shall I say, than there is for war. But 100 years ago that wasn't the case. And this is the problem with every new discovery. While we are in a condition that lacks love, every new discovery that is made is usually often used in its most negative form first. Yeah. So you think in the Second World War, we learnt a lot about nuclear fusion and fission, so much so that we could create an atomic bomb, which was then dropped upon people in Japan, right? And yet it wasn't until many years later that we used the first that same technology for the production of power,
So
which is a more loving means.
What was the purpose for those loving spirits to materialize at that era?
They brought a lot of technology,
They brought technology. Okay.
mathematics,
Mathematics, yeah. The evolution of mankind is a combination of what happens on Earth and what happens in the spirit world. It's not just what happens on Earth.
That's what we know.
So, in the future, the question you were asking was more about the future, Nico, and in the future you will see many spirits materialise on the Earth, and many of them will come and have chats with you. Yeah. And when you say can you elucidate? Can you explain? You said
Well, I know that I will have chats with.
He was playing poker with Santa Claus.
The thing is, when I was very young, I saw this dream of the destruction of the earth. And at that time, I didn't understand the whole of it, and I stayed in fear.
Yeah.
And as I had to progress through my emotional conditioning, I found out it triggered another emotion of closing the gates of heaven, of course. And at that moment, I felt the only thing that it was so perfect, I don't know why, and so strong in me, in that dream, was I am safe, I'm powerful, and I feel so much hurt for the changes and the damage will happen to the world. And the question that I always was asking was, why so many have to die. And to want to have the desire to help them, but just looking, you know, because you cannot do anything.
The reality is that nobody has to die. So that's the
Even
reality.
in this state right now, we are in this state right now. Even
Yeah, nobody has to die, but the reality is that that many will, because of the choices we make. And
Hey, you guys don't even want to know what's going to happen in your country. So how are you going to look after you?
I know the answer to that. I don't like it. You know, I like to have warm water. I know how to survive. But with all this fallout from the volcanoes and stuff, it's gonna be really hard, and I don't like it that way. To be honest with you.
well, that's the emotion of wanting comfort, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
wanting a comfortable life. Yeah.
I would like to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you would like.
Yeah.
I want to create something new.
Sure. There's a lot of positive, once you know the truth about it, there's a lot of positive things you can do now to sort through the issue easily. But it also means dealing with quite a lot of emotions, doesn't it? Yeah. Because some of the emotions are things like, you know, even our desire for comfort is going to get triggered. So our desire to be able to travel wherever we want, you know, we're so used these days to, you know, travelling at a whim, you know, and it's going to be hard to travel at a whim. So there's all these kind of emotions that we need to work our way through, but we'd love to address the issues of what will happen earth change-wise for Europe. Yeah. So,
I would like to now ask another question. No?
can I just see who had their hands up first?
Oh,
There's Eagle. I'd like to ask, Patra's had her hand up for some time, so can I ask Patra first?
I want to ask about the children between the spirit, materialized spirits and the people on earth.
Yes.
Do they have human souls, like our souls, or are they?
Yes, they did.
Did it?
Yeah.
Remember the spirit men had souls as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So they still had a human soul.
Human soul.
Yep. But because of their physical form, they exercised their soul in a very damaging way, and so now are in very dark condition. And still are in a very dark condition, even though this happened like nearly 13,000 years ago. Yeah.
it's not about, it's a different topic.
Is
So,
there anything on the
yeah,
same
exactly.
topic?
Yes.
Marina?
Marina?
Because of what you were saying before about how Greeks feel about mythology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a lot of unworthiness, but I feel like my mediumship is opening up a lot towards this, especially these days and these weeks.
Yeah.
And I said something that I feel very strongly. The reason why a lot of Greeks, all of us as a group, I don't think there's one person that isn't a medium.
Yeah.
We've all in some way have said like a piece of info, like, just
Yeah.
like, what'd you just say?
Yeah.
You know, this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I feel one of the reasons why it's so strongly is also based from damage point of view, where Greeks really wanted to keep in touch with their ancestors somehow. And because they also knew about, like, I getting these images of Pythagorean and all of these
Yeah.
theories, they knew that the mixture of art and science was really, really important.
Yep.
And that's why we feel like we have this kind of more open than, I guess, if you were to compare it.
Yep.
But also, when you also asked about, does anybody have an image about what would happen to Greece? I got an image of a map, and if you want, I can say it out loud now, or if you'd
Sure.
like me to wait. I had a feeling that it was like, it would become a much smaller peninsula,
Mhm.
but one side would be like a new island would be formed from what would be west of Greece,
Mhm.
and then the rest would be just like the middle to the top, something like this, like northern, but west would remain, and then like a little thing of east, and then that was it. And I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
about that.
But the issue we
But I don't
face.
know, and I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but.
The issue we face with earth changes isn't just what the underlying topology is going to be afterwards. What we've got to do is we've got to look at what's going to happen during. And that's the thing that's going to depend, our survival very much is going to depend upon. Does that make sense? So even though you may end up with land masses still being around your region, the issue is going to be how habitable everything is after that point, and what will happen in between. And that's why it's so important to ask a lot more detailed questions than just what is things going to look like at the end, you know.
If you asked the question, I got a picture and I said,
Sure,
I still
sure.
need a lot of work though.
Yeah.
But I wanted to say this piece of the mediumship is really important, and I really feel that a lot of my ancestors and a lot of Greeks are like, you see, they were real. They really did come and they really did do this. But they also feel cheated because they felt that they were in much higher conditions than what they really were.
Yeah.
Like, what are you saying? You know?
That's
they
correct.
feel like it took so long to come back and do this. They feel like that.
Yeah, and this is the trouble too with error, is that when we hear error over and over and over and over again, when we hear the truth, we feel cheated. You know, we feel like it's unjust, but the reality is it's the error over and over and over again that's the injustice, and that's the thing that's damaging. But often it's the hearing of the truth that causes us to be angry, rather than the actual fact that, you know, we've been told the error for years and years and years. The other thing I've noticed about Greece is that even though you've had a very heavy Christian influence, there's one part of the Christian influence that's had very little effect on you in terms of, and there's affected your mediumship. And that is that in the Bible it states quite categorically in some parts of the Hebrew scriptures that if you're a medium, that you should be put to death.
And that definitely didn't stick here.
Definitely didn't stick in Greece. And as a result of that, there is this acceptance almost, even in the Greek Orthodox religion, of prophecy, if you like, or spirit-induced discussions. And there is an understanding of bright spirits or spirits who are loving compared to spirits that are unloving.
We have the monasteries back on the north, you know, one, I don't know the word, north of Salonika.
Yep.
It's a community of heavy Orthodox, Mount Athos, where they have very good communication
with spirits.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, where in your culture it's fairly much accepted, even though it's a Christian culture pretty much now. It's pretty much still accepted that spirit communication is okay. And in fact, it's not only just okay, but it's also quite acceptable. Whereas in many of the other Christian cultures, it's been so unacceptable that you'd be burned alive for speaking to a spirit, you know. And in particularly most of the Catholic influenced cultures, that's very much the case, where, you know, they would have been burned alive as a witch if you were found speaking with spirits.
I've always been fascinated by other cultures, and I just, like, in the end I feel everyone has a unique personality, and it's often a mix of dominant injuries and dominant openness to truth in selected areas that create a culture, you know, and then everyone lives together in that and it kind of gets developed. But because I used to think, no, culture is like a pure thing, that everyone should be different, and now I kind of have a different view. But I just find it so beautiful traveling and feeling the purity of, like, you know, you guys as mediums and spirit interaction. It's so much more open than Australia even, and we're not even Christian culture really. We're the least religious nation on earth, like statistically. But I just find it really beautiful, and it just, like, I have lots of visions about how people of different cultures of the world can actually help heal the injuries in the other cultures, you know, because every culture carries injury, and but every culture has a certain openness to aspects of different truth, and it's just so beautiful to me that I love the blending of cultures, and that, you know, there's so many nationalities in the room, and I just think that's really beautiful.
It's like a nice salad.
Yeah.